All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Denver Gophers Meetup. This is July 23rd. My name is Warren. I'm one of the many co-hosts of the Denver Gophers Meetup. And yeah, thank you all for coming and showing up. So today, well, before we move on to the talk, I want to just get a couple of things out of the way. If anybody, I think we had done some round of introductions, but if anybody wants to say hi, feel free to say hi, any new members. And if anybody is sort of advertising for jobs or looking for jobs, this would now be a good time to advertise. Yeah, cool. All right, since no one's speaking up, let's just get on with it. So I'd like to introduce Datta. He's a program manager at JFrog, and I'll be going over the security of Go modules and vulnerability scanning in GoCenter and VSCode. Cool. Take it away, Deep. Feel free to share your screen.
Share thing. All right. Can you guys see that? All good? Okay. All right. So thank you for having me. Very excited. I like doing meetups. I was actually just in Denver last year, and I'm coming back for a wedding near Boulder this year in October. Hopefully COVID dies down before then. But here to talk a little bit about Go modules and security of Go modules and what I've learned about Go. So before we dive into the talk, Ari wanted me to present this slide. Basically, we give away t-shirts for all the meetups. You just have to go to that QR code, provide your information, your email. Ari will send you a t-shirt, so just give us your t-shirt size. You're also entered to win a Nintendo Switch. So you can go to the QR code. You can use that link at the bottom, that bit.ly link. Here, I'll paste it in the chat really quick. And the other thing to know about that link is the slides that I'm presenting today are available at that link as well. So I'll put this back up at the end in case you don't get to check it out now. Okay. So here's the agenda today. I'm going to start with an introduction about who I am. We're going to talk a little bit more about the history of dependency management in Go and the changes that came with Go 113, the standard of Go modules. I'm going to do a little bit of deep dive into some concepts with Go modules, including the checksum database and concepts about how it works. Then I'm going to do kind of a demo of what it means to commit a new Go module to the checksum database. And then we're going to talk about vulnerabilities that can show up in your dependencies for your modules. I will end by showing you the product that I manage, GoCenter, and I will also show you a little bit of what we're doing in VS Code. One thing to know, guys, is I get into presentation mode since I've done this meetup many times, but I don't want you to think that you can't interrupt me. So feel free to just shout out, turn your sound on, ask me a question. Don't worry, you know, you're not going to break my train of thought too much. So feel free to ask questions in between the talk. There's also going to be time at the end for Q&A, but just letting you know, you can yell at me and it'll be great. So my name's Deep Datta. I'm the community product manager at JFrog. My job is basically to keep JFrog connected to the community. So JFrog, they've been around for 10 years. Our main product is Artifactory. Big chunk of the company is dedicated towards enterprise clients because someone's got to pay the bills. But JFrog really does care about staying connected to the everyday developer, and that's how they started. So I'm on the team, I'm on the community team, and my role really is to connect with individuals such as yourself, learn more about what you're working on in Go, and see if there's anything cool that we should be working on together. All the products that I manage are free, they're open source. And you know, if you want to collaborate or you have questions, or you even want to contribute to the future roadmap, you can contact me, d@jfrog.com. My email or my Twitter is DattaX, and I get back to people like within 24, 48 hours unless I'm on vacation. So feel free to reach out. Right, let's get into the talk. Actually, I do want to pause. Does anyone have any questions about anything? And then I'm going to jump into my presentation. No? Oh. Okay, here we go. So you probably all know that Go's gone through a few different concepts in dependency management. Um, Go went through a dependency management system at the beginning called Glide, and there was a system where you would place your project folder inside of your Go path, resolve any packages that you had. Then experimented with the dependency management system called DEP, and they had to work through some issues with vendoring. But as the community evolved, Go's leaders realized that there needed to be a much better way to manage dependencies. And with Go 111, they introduced this concept of a Go module. So Go module is essentially, it's basically a collection of Go packages. Uh, Go packages are stored in a file tree with a go.mod file at its root. And with Go 113, Go modules became the official standard for Golang. So I remember, 6-8 months ago, we had a lot of community members asking how to migrate their projects from Go 112 to 113. I think now everyone should be using Go 113. Modules are, in my opinion, really cool. What was really interesting about Go 13 and standardizing Go modules is there's two files that are really important to modules. So there's the go.mod file, which defines the module path. This is where your list of imports and dependencies are listed. Go also introduced some basic security considerations with the go.sum file. So, what I really like about Go is how easily these two files get generated when you're building your Go modules or your Go project. Once I build my app, the GoSum file basically appears, and it's got a list of hashes. So in the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what these hashes actually are, why they're there. All right, so these hashes, they're used as checksums, and I'm going to explain what a checksum is. A checksum, and if you've sort of been in the space for a long time, forgive me, but a checksum is a way to provide authentication that a block of digital data hasn't changed while it's being transmitted or stored. So by themselves, checksums are used to verify data integrity, but they're not necessarily there to verify that the data or the code is actually secure. And I'm going to talk more specifically about what that means. With Go, this makes sure that the same files and dependencies that were originally committed up to the Golang checksum database, that when you import this module at a later time, you're getting the intended module without any changes. So kind of in kind of a practicality, what this is if I am a module author and I want to make sure that 6 months down the line, you get the exact same module that I intended you to get, this list of hashes will be within, it'll be in the file. And 6 months down the line, you're going to pull up and import this file. You're going to look at the GoSum file. And as long as the list of hashes hasn't changed one bit, you're going to know that the file that I wanted you to get is exactly the same. And I'm going to dive into exactly how that works next. All right, so those checksums that you saw, these are SHA-256 checksums. SHA stands for Secure Hashing Algorithm. And what's really great about the SHA-2 is, one, it's never been broken as of yet, but also it is irreversible, right? So you put some file into the algorithm, output comes out. It's a 43 character string of output. This is the SHA-256 base 64 encoding of the SHA-2. you get this 43 character string, and you can't like reverse engineer it and understand what the original file is. And that's really important because if someone has malicious intent, if they have the SHA value, they can't go back and figure out the original file and mess with it. The other reason the other cool thing about the SHA-2 is it's unique. That means if I have a piece of text and I change, one little thing in it, I change a number, add a period, the entire SHA value that comes out is going to change, and it changes dramatically. So you never know what the original file is, and this just protects someone from trying to mimic or copy these files that are going through the hashing algorithm. So Golang uses this database, and the database is there to store these SHA values. The kind of database that Golang uses is a Merkle tree structure. So Merkle tree, you might be familiar with this from Bitcoin and all that, from crypto. But basically the way that this works is data is stored in the bottom, essentially, and then it's hashed. A SHA-2 hash, you get that 43 character string, then those hashes are hashed again, and they're hashed again all the way up to the top. This is really cool for two reasons. So one reason is if somebody tries to inject some piece of data or change a piece of data, it'll change the entire hash all the way up to the root, right? So this entire branch has changed because something's changed in the data. It makes it very easy to see where that change happened. The other reason a Merkle tree is important is because, as I mentioned, if someone is trying to verify the integrity of these files, they don't have to, a computer doesn't have to go and scan every single piece, every line of code, everything to verify that it matches. All it needs to do is make sure that the root node matches, because if the root node matches, that means nothing in the underlying file has changed. And this is really what makes Merkle tree structures better than a traditional database. All right, so let's talk about modules now that we have
Hey,
some.
Deep.
Yeah.
I had a question. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah,
So in the previous slide, it said that the go.sum data was at the very bottom. Um, so I thought if the intent was to, like if you have a directory, like a project foo, and then directory A, B, and C, and each one had a bunch of files. Would it be that each file essentially is hashed, and then they kind of walk up the tree, and the root of the hash would that be the hash that would be put inside the go.sum file, or?
no, that's a good question. Let's go back. So the data that's put in is a hash, and is also a hash, right? So this is what's put in, right? And then this is hashed, and then that's hashed again all the way up. So they're not necessarily putting in the entire project. The checksum database is mostly meant to check the integrity. It's not like it's not checking every single line of code in your module. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that data, the initial root, sorry, the leaf, I guess,
Yeah.
is that a hash of the go.sum? Is it a hash of a go.sum file, or is it just some hash?
It's actually a list of hashes. So your GoSum file has multiple hashes in it, and it's let's say it has 10. It's those 10 hashes. I think it'll become. Does that make sense? I think it'll be a little clearer as I go along.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. All right. So basically, if I have two modules right here, and I've named one module 1 and I have module 2, they're different modules. They have a different list of hashes in their go.sum files. And since these are different list of hashes, they can be stored, they're stored and they're committed to the Golang database. And the Golang database is called GoSumdb. And those list of hashes are there, they're saved, good to go. Now, if someone comes along and they make one minor change to module one, what happens is the list of hashes in your module one, in the module one, has changed. So if you haven't changed the name of module one and it tries to commit itself to the GoSum database, there's going to be a checksum mismatch, and somebody who is trying to say that this is the same module one that you had committed, they're not going to be able to commit it because the list of hashes is different. So this is how the hashes actually protect each module and make sure that those modules, the integrity of those modules is safe. So let's talk about this kind of in practice if you're building a Go module, right? So let's say I've created my first Go module and I'm saving it as mod one. So here's my main.go file, and I've committed this to GoSum database. The list of hashes in my GoSum file are unique, and so they're stored. And then what happens is I realize that I've actually imported a Go package for my web project that isn't providing any kind of encryption or encoding for my web app, right? So the text/template package is a legitimate package, but it's not meant for sending data through the web. So this specific package in Go is going to open up my app to a cross-site scripting issue. Well, again, this is a dependency. The dependency in itself is not broken or flawed in any way, but it's the wrong dependency for my application. So now my web application in Go has a vulnerability. What do? I change the package. I import the right one. HTML/template is the right package for my web app. And what I have to do now is I have to save this module as a different version, right? So if I try to save it as the same version, but I've changed something in the file, different list of hashes, I'm not going to be able to commit this to the database. So now I have to version my new module one. Now, if you're making a minor change, obviously you can call your new version a patch version. If you are making major changes, maybe you save it as a v2. And in Go, the syntax for versioning is pretty strict, right? So if it's a minor patch, I might do v1.1. And as you can see, the syntax, you're going to have the name of the module followed by a v1.1. Whatever. If you change this to a v2, you actually have to put a slash after the end of the module name and then a v2. If you don't do this correctly, you're going to get errors. And this is something we saw a lot months ago when people were versioning their modules. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind as you start developing your own Go modules. All right. So now I have mod 1, right? And I have mod 1 version 2, the one that I fixed. And both of them have a unique list of hashes. And because they have a unique list of hashes, they can both be stored to the checksum database, and they're fine, good to go. Now, what happens if someone reads an old blog of mine, and I had originally talked about my cool mod 1? If they go to that blog and they get this mod 1 and they import it, because again, the module, as far as Golang is concerned, is valid, they're going to open themselves up to a cross-site scripting issue because I had the wrong package in my app, right? So what I really want you to understand here is vulnerabilities don't mean that there's already some kind of bad code. Like, it doesn't mean there's already been a hack in your code. A vulnerability basically just means your code is vulnerable, and it's vulnerable for a myriad of reasons. In this case, this mod 1 is vulnerable because there's data going to the browser and the data is easily accessible. So imagine that you are using Golang and you've got dozens of dependencies in your Go mod file. And these dependencies are third-party open source dependencies. The versions are being updated. You might not know when a vulnerability has been introduced in the new version or even in an old version. Sometimes people catch issues, you know, from old versions of things, and your app can become vulnerable at any time. So to summarize what we've talked about so far, the GoSum file uses a list of SHA-256 base 64 hashes to match the checksum database. The Go mod file stores your dependencies. These hashes are used to detect misbehavior of the data, right? So again, if someone's changed the data, that's how you're being protected with these checksums. But the GoSum file has a limitation in that it's not actually like a code linter. So if something was introduced when the original module was committed, that's going to remain in the module for the life of that version. So this is where I want to talk about security and GoCenter. To give you a little bit of a brief of what GoCenter is a module mirror. It's a Go proxy. You can download every publicly available Go module from GoCenter. We have over 740,000 versions of Go modules. I'll show it to you in a minute so you understand how to search GoCenter. Using GoCenter to import modules is super easy. You just set up, you just do export GoProxy equals HTTPS, GoCenter.io. You can copy and paste that into your terminal. Set the Go client, it'll import modules directly from GoCenter. So let me show you a little demo. I'm gonna stop and reshare my entire screen. Okay. All right, so this is GoCenter. It's fairly self-explanatory as I go along. There we go. All right, so basically, GoCenter is all about finding modules. So it's all about search. So if I go up here, I can search for, any Go module. You're gonna see the module name, a brief description. You'll see the latest version of the module, including all pseudo versions. You'll see how many times it's been downloaded, and you'll see the star rating. So I'm gonna go straight to a module that I know has vulnerabilities, which is Moby. So click on Moby, and at JFrog, we're a DevOps company. We pride ourselves on providing lots of metadata so that engineers can track the lineage of that data. So for every module, there's a README. We've got a copy of the mod file. We just added GoDocs on the tabs itself. We have a whole dependency tree, which is actually really cool. You can drill down and see every single dependency of Moby. And on the flip side, you can see, I guess this version of Moby is not used by others, but you can actually see on GoCenter what versions are used by other. Let me show you an actual example. So this is helpful because if you want to know if a certain version is popular, it's not finding one. It'll tell you. There we go. Used by 333. Oh, it's not working. That's great. Good job, guys. I will have to tell my team. But what's cool about this usually is it'll tell you what other modules are using this one. Then we have metrics. We pull in metrics from GitHub basically, so you can see the number of open issues, the number of forks, the number of contributors, kind of some download statistics. And then the versions tab is actually pretty important to security. So on the versions tab, we list every available version of this module, even versions that were broken, and pseudo versions. So if we go back to Moby, I will show you the security stuff. Here on Moby, if there's a vulnerability that shows up in a Go module, we have a security tab. The security information comes from publicly available databases, like the National Vulnerability Database. And what we're providing you here is the CVE ID. CVE stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. It's a way to identify vulnerabilities that have been publicly reported. You can see the CVE ID. You can see the severity level of the vulnerability. You can see a description of the vulnerability. And for more advanced features like remediation and how to fix issues, that's where we invite you to check out X-Ray. But for the use case of just wanting to know if you're using if you're using a module that is safe or not safe, that information is very easy to see in GoCenter. So if you go over to the versions tab, what's cool is you can see if the latest version or an old version of the specific module you're looking for has vulnerabilities or doesn't. So Moby tends to have vulnerabilities in every single version. It used to have a few, so like if you go back to 191, those ones are vulnerability free, right? But 1.6, again, 1.5 issues. I'm showing you a module that has tons and tons of security issues, but there are many modules that don't. The versions tab is where you can see which module would be safest to use. Going back to my presentation, I showed you this. The other thing is we do have vulnerabilities listed on the dependencies tab too. It's a little harder to navigate if you have tons of dependencies, but that information is there. And to end kind of the story that I was telling, now that I have the GoCenter vulnerability scanning, if I have mod 1 and I have mod 1 version 2, I can use GoCenter to see what module version is safe and which one is not. This is a snapshot of the common vulnerabilities and exposures list. So if you want to learn more about what CVEs actually are, this is a real life screenshot of cross-site scripting issues that do exist in Go modules. All right, the last thing I want to show you is how we've extended free vulnerability scanning from GoCenter into VSCode. So I'm going to do that next. Just going to take 5 minutes. Before I show you, the same kind of feature in VSCode, do you guys have any questions so far? Nope. Okay. All right, then I will continue.
I have one, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just forgot the shortcut to the Zoom unmute.
Okay.
Is there, I'm assuming since it's integrated with VS Code, is there by any chance a CLI or some command line tool that we can use to run on our Go mod?
No, so the reason we can't provide you the vulnerability scanning in a CLI is because it'll be very easy to programmatically copy our entire X-ray database. So I had to fight with our leadership, and they drew a fine line between how much of our vulnerability scanning tool we can give away for free. So what we settled on is we're going to put it on GoCenter. We're going to put it inside VS Code. But as helpful as it would be to have it directly in your own terminal, if we do that, then the data is essentially you can build our entire database by yourself. So we had to limit that somewhere. We are thinking about extending the vulnerability data into other IDEs. So there might be in the future some way to get it into more of a local CLI. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. See if you can include Vimgo.
Okay, I've had that request before, so I will look into it. The VS Code integration came out a few months ago, so we're just starting to get these tools into, IDEs and other things like this. So yeah, happy to discuss like where else we could provide this stuff. So let me show you the VS Code side of things. It's been the most useful for me as a web developer. So what I'm going to show you basically is I wanted to learn how to create a full stack app, a web app using Golang and different Go modules. So what I did is I looked up a tutorial. The front end was pretty familiar to me. So I built a very basic front end. I called it my grocery Go app. This is so that my parents, who I am sheltering with, can help me, can basically put a grocery list together, and then I can go run to the store and get groceries for them. So what I did in this simple app is, my mom can add her name. She can put in an order for like noodles, right? And she can tell me like she wants the 2-pound bag. So very easy. Now my mom's request has been stored here. Right now, the front end is storing this data in a text file. So the next thing I wanted to do was understand how do I take this data and connect it to an actual database. So what I did next is I looked up a Go-related object relational mapper so that I could easily map my data to a database. And I found a Go module called GORM, G-O-R-M, and I'll put that up on the slides in a minute. So this, what you're going to see here, this is basically the front end code of this app that I'm showing you. So signatures.txt is where my data is being stored, and these are my handlers. And where is it? Signatures. Okay. So this is the front end, and oh, here we go. Name, signature, content. So what I want to do now is take these form inputs, and I want to map this data to a database. So bringing up my backend, what I did was used GORM to create a model, and I've got my name, the order, the message, and these strings. And now these pieces of data are quickly being mapped to a SQLite database. Sometimes I bring up Postman and I can show you the actual API that's storing this data. But what I really want to show you here is, because I have the JFrog extension installed that has the free Go vulnerability scanning, as I was building my application, what happened is the go.mod file got highlighted, right, in yellow. And the reason it got highlighted in yellow is because I actually have issues with the dependencies I'm bringing in. Now, what you're going to see here is I have GORM is the actual dependency that originally had a vulnerability. This vulnerability has been fixed recently, so GORM itself is no longer vulnerable. At least GORM 1914 is no longer vulnerable. So for the purpose of this example, I actually am bringing in the Moby dependency just so I can show you. So when a module has a vulnerability in this extension, it's highlighted in either blue, yellow, or red. When it's highlighted, you can put your mouse over it and you'll see details from GoCenter, vulnerabilities, 1 low, 4 medium. What's really useful, again, is right when you're coding, if the color of your app changes, it means a vulnerability has been found. And if I click on the module, this little icon appears. I can click on show and dependency tree, going to the JFrog extension. I can see the entire dependency tree of the GORM module. And here on the bottom, component issues, I can actually see details for all the vulnerabilities that have been found. I think the last thing to show you that's really cool about this as you're working on your apps is, hopefully this works, this little upgrade dependency will show up. So if you're using a version of a dependency that is old, hitting upgrade will automatically, it'll automatically upgrade it. So there we go, it worked. Every now and then it doesn't work when I need it to. So this is the vulnerability scanning in VS Code. This is my app project. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the GORM module, you can go to gorm.io, my app project tutorial. The front end code is there. And that is it. That is my, oh, I have the wrong bit.ly link right there. We'll go here. That's my talk. Just wanted to see if you guys have any questions. And I guess, as I said, I'll leave this up. I'll leave it up for a few more minutes. You can get all the slides that I just shared at that link. Cool. Any questions?
Does everybody here know how, the Go module stuff that Deep was talking about, based on some versions like major, minor, and patch? Does everybody here know what those mean? Like semver, basically. It's basically what we call semantic versioning, semver.
I don't personally, no.
Okay, yeah. So Semver is like it's been around for a while. It's like a standard for versioning, and it, Google basically kind of just rallied around that specific it's like style of versioning, and your Go modules have to be sort of if they're, let's say, GitHub releases, they would have to be tagged in this format. So the first number is your major version, the second number is your minor, and then the third is your patch. And um, essentially major, whenever you bump from like 1.0 to 2.0, means like stuff's gonna break. Like there, there's gonna be like some breaking changes, and you need to understand that. But if you go from 1.0 to 1.1, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so those are like just like minor changes, like some stuff that was added, and then patch is like bug fixes and backward compatibility is mentioned there. So Go uses Semver sort of format to pull in those Go modules. And as an author for like a Go library, it'd be really like if you want people to be happy when they're importing your stuff, you'd have to sort of follow similar sort of schema. Which, to be honest, it's not a bad it's not a bad thing. It's nice. Somewhere has a lot of extensibility to it as well.
Yeah, we have a whole like a blog here if you guys want to learn about the core versioning specific to Go. So you can go to GoCenter.io. It's the first one on the community news area right here. Yeah. Any other questions about GoCenter, Go modules?
So Deep, I noticed that you'd put a specific export inside, obviously into the terminal, to send you off to JFrog's GoCenter.
Yeah.
Is that then referenced anywhere, like inside of the actual Go mod file?
It's not referenced inside the files, right?
Okay.
It's a location that I would go to get my modules.
Makes sense.
You guys probably know that Golang created their own, essentially it's called a central repository of all the Go modules, and that's part of where the checksum database comes in as well. So GoCenter built our central repository in January 2019, and then Golang came out with their own in September of 2019, and Golang set theirs as the default. So you don't have to change your GOPROXY to get any publicly available module. But there are companies that don't want, since Golang is essentially a Google project, there are companies that don't want Google to have access to their data, especially when they're building like enterprise or proprietary Go projects. So the reason that somebody would use GoCenter to import their modules is they don't want Google to know that they're importing certain things, etc. But the other reason GoProxy, GoCenter is important is because we have the vulnerability data, whereas Golang's default proxy does not. But you don't have to use our GoProxy for the vulnerabilities to be scanned. They're scanned from a public database, not specifically just from our GoProxy.
Got it. So with the VS Code extension, without the proxy, Xray would still function. I think was kind of was getting at in a haphazard manner of asking. Awesome. Yes. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, you don't have to use our GoProxy.
Yeah, and very nice to have a private repo. So that's or private, package management solution. That makes a lot more sense. Just try to figure out the value proposition, and that you hit the nail on the head on that one. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other Go questions in general? For all the for all the newcomers who are like trying to learn Go, feel free to, I mean, I know it's only once a month, but if you'll have any sort of projects you're working on, any questions or things that you'll run into around the time frame of the Go meetup, you know, feel free to bring them in the Zoom, and we can all kind of chat and discuss about it and stuff like that. Deep, thank you very much for that talk. I definitely learned a thing or two, especially about the Merkle tree stuff. I didn't know about that, so that was really nice. And I'm glad the VS Code stuff actually seems like the experience is pretty cool. The fact that you can hover over it and actually kind of see things, and more importantly, the project folder turning the color to kind of catch your attention. I thought that was kind of valuable as well.
Yeah, so all you have to do if you have VS Code is go to the extension marketplace, type in JFrog. It's part of the, like the whole, JFrog has an extension, and this vulnerability scanning is just built in for Go. You just get the extension, it's free to download, and the vulnerability scanning for Go specifically is free. It'll just happen on its own.
Anything else that anybody else want to discuss or chat about? Oh, also, I had another thing for those who are joining new and who are trying to learn Go. If there are specific topics that you'd like to learn about, you know, feel free to go to the Denver channel in the Gopher Slack and kind of say, hey, I'd like to, you know, does anybody know more about this stuff? And then you never know, somebody else might be like, yeah, actually, I can do a talk about it. And in fact, I encourage even the newcomers to, you know, see if there's something interesting like that text template package. And if you play around with it, feel free to be like, why is text template crappy and HTML is the one you want to use? You know, that could be just simple topics that people could do. For talks. Cool. The only other announcement I had was next month we have, I believe we have Bill Kennedy, who's somebody who's like quite well known in the Go community. He's written, I think, the Go in Action book. He'll be talking more about Go and generics in Go specifically. And I think he might be even doing some demos and stuff like that. So I highly recommend y'all come to the next meetup, because this generic stuff is actually, I think, a version 2.0 feature in Go, right? So right now Go is like 1. Whatever, and based again on December guidelines, it's always backward compatible, but generics is coming in, and that if once they get that all sorted out, it'll be in the Go 2.0 version. Any other things? Stacy, do you have any other things to say?
Is anyone primarily a Python engineer coming over to Go? Python people?
I started in Go, but I have written quite a lot of Python as well. But I think I was heavier in Go before I started writing Python pretty heavily.
I learned Python first, and I'm now really interested in. So I'm a product manager. I'm not coding every day like many engineers are. So I'm taking a class on what it means to be a product manager for AI. And it's less about the code. It's more about the philosophy of getting the right data, getting the right tools to make that data clean, and getting the right tools to make the data fast. So there's this whole debate now Python is the language for data science, but because Go has threading and concurrency, I think Go might become the language for AI. So I'm always interested to hear from Python, people who know Python and Go, their thoughts on this.
I think.
Is there any?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is
okay.
Ari. Sorry, Deep. I'm interested in that. Is there any articles that you would recommend to read about that? Because I also don't write Python. I write Angular in the front end, but I'm interested in using Go for one day doing that.
If you type Go, I'm sure there's tons of stuff out there. I'll put something quick in the chat.
I know
Does
I
anyone-
personally would prefer Go over Python, but for pretty much any application, I would probably choose Go over Python. So I'm probably not the right person to ask.
I think
Python is a little bit more approachable, and data scientists are using Python left and right.
Yeah.
Data scientists are not going to want to necessarily learn Go.
Yeah. Well, and Python has all the Spark integrations and all the support for that as well. So that definitely puts it a leg ahead of Go. I haven't seen, I'm sure that you can do Spark things in Go, but I actually haven't looked into any libraries or anything. I know it's not one of the main supported ones. It's used like Scala and Python, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even like something like Jupyter Notebooks, like not having that actively available is going to be a pretty big hurdle for Go to overcome, especially coming from like the data science side of things, in my opinion.
yeah,
That's fair.
gonna mention that Jupyter Notebooks thing is like heavy for like academics who are using it, and because of the Python REPL, like the way they structure the stuff, that's not that. Yeah, Python has that leg up where you can just quickly just run thing and then just
The ability to is what we're saying, the ability to incrementally run code in a manner that looks exactly like that is probably like one of the most useful things that they've got going as far as the academics are concerned. Definitely.
you should just make Go run faster, just like run Go run. Cool.
I'd also be curious too, like if there's any, like I know a lot of it, like especially once you get into like the deep learning space with things like the CUDA cores and like a lot of the stuff where it's targeting GPU specific stuff. I know a lot of the tooling, or I'm fairly certain that a lot of the tooling it's been written with Python integrations in mind. So I'd also be curious what the path looks like to translate some of that to Go, and just where that stands, not having really looked at it at all in Go. Very interesting though.
Yeah, I think once they start porting all the packages, like all the data science Python packages over to Go, then maybe it'll start taking up more and more momentum.
Awesome. Well, if nobody has anything else, I mean, we can hang out and talk for a while, or we can wrap up early. But in regards to next week's talk, just to add to what Warren said, Bill Kennedy's a really amazing speaker, and he's contributed quite a lot to the Go community. So I would highly recommend any of his talks. So hopefully we'll see all of you there. I'm super excited about next week, or I guess next month, next week, next month. I don't know what day it is anymore. We're all home all the time.
Yeah, he's like a rock star. Not a rock star. He's a celebrity. I remember him. He has that what do they call it? Not a beret. He has that cap, a very identifiable cap that he wears.
He's really nice too. He actually spoke for us live at GopherCon, the last GopherCon Denver hosted. So what was that, 2018? When we hosted at SendGrid, we had like 250 people there, and he was one of our speakers, and it was really cool.
Nice.
And he spoke for us, I think, even back when we were, when Bitly was hosting us at the Triangle Building. So we work there. I feel like he's been a speaker for us more than once.
Nice. Yeah. For those,
before we all go, I'll plug for myself again. So some of you who were here last month may remember me. I gave the talk. My name's Connor. Currently in Boston, but I'm trying to move to Boulder probably in September or late August, and I'm looking for entry level stuff, but hopefully in the Go space.
Watch Fanatics job postings or find me on the Gophers Slack.
Awesome.
And I can hook you up
check
with
it
some
out.
of that. I don't
I've
know what we have open right now, but we are hiring, like we're carefully hiring right now, but by the time you get here, who knows, we might be back to hiring normal pace.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I figured I'd throw that in before we break.
Cool. Yeah, and also, if you haven't already, I saw you posted a couple things in the Denver channel, but I'm not sure if I saw you post that you were looking for something in this area. Do post that there, because like I live in Boulder, and there's, a number of Boulder folks that hang out in the Denver channel. So just post it there, and people will let you know what they see.
Post in bold in the Denver channel?
In the Denver, yeah, in the Gophers Slack. Because Warren, I feel like that reaches, like it's basically Denver and every suburb. Like it's a really large channel.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll throw something together.
I think everybody I speak to, either people who are looking or people who are advertising, looking to hire, I just kind of direct them Denver channel. I mean, just have one place to go to, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we call ourselves Mile High Gophers, is because it kind of spans between Boulder, Denver, and does it also do the one in
DTC?
DTC, yeah.
Yeah, we're all under that same umbrella, and then the Women Who Go is under that same umbrella as well. So all of those meetups. Women Who Go's borderline on hold right now, I guess, with COVID. Myself and one of the other organizers who couldn't make it tonight usually run that one. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff, and I mean, if you're open to considering remote work, like if you wouldn't mind being full-time remote, like that really opens up more opportunities. I hear about full-time remote jobs like all the time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm in the application process. I had like my first round of like an on-site interview. It was, but over Zoom, of course, but for a Boston place today.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't think that scares me so much. Obviously it'd be nice to have somewhere to go. Sometimes I think like the face-to-face connection is important, but obviously for our field, it's less so on an hour-to-hour, day-by-day basis.
Yeah, I've done both. I mean, for a while, I mean, most of the spaces around here, I think, are talking about not reopening for 2020 is what I'm hearing. So regardless of what you do, you're going to be full-time remote for a while anyways. But I mean, I've done both. I've been full-time remote, when things were normal, and I agree. It is nice to see folks in person. For me, though, I think that what makes a really big difference in being remote is if everyone else is remote also, versus just being like remote to where like a chunk of folks are in the office, and then you miss out on the water cooler stuff. Whereas if everyone's remote, water cooler talk happens on Slack. So it makes it a little bit easier. Just something to consider.
Yeah. I heard a talk recently from the head of remote of GitLab. So I don't know if you all know a company called GitLab. They are 100% remote company. In fact, they don't even have any headquarters. They have a lot
of Go as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I just came to my head as we were discussing this, because GitLab, their headquarters is essentially a post box somewhere in San Francisco. But look for companies that sort of like GitLab is like I would say like almost like a pioneer in remote work. They have everything open source. So if you just type in like GitLab compensation and Denver, you can see like they show you in how they calculate their compensation for like a location you are in. And because that when companies are actually like remote, like truly fostering remote culture, kind of like what Stacy was saying, is everybody's sort of on the same playing field. They get to expand their hiring pool and talent from anywhere across, like not just major city centers, but it could be you could be living in North Carolina somewhere, or in Arkansas or whatever place, and still get access to talent. That was like another big thing of theirs. I don't know if there's a way to search. I think if you just do some Google searching on just remote companies, like companies who do remote stuff, like DigitalOcean, I know is another company. DigitalOcean? Yeah, DigitalOcean.
Yeah, DigitalOcean does a lot of remote, and so Slack is opening up more remote postings. I've seen, so Datadog has a small Denver contingent, and they're also hiring remote. And then the New York Times is hiring remote Go developers. That's another big one I keep seeing job postings for.
Also, this fintech company is opening their second office in Denver.
Oh, cool.
Marqeta. Okay. I've heard of them. I mean, I've heard of them because I was on LinkedIn and one of my so it just kind of scrolled. It showed up on my posts. It's like one of those things where it's like on the right hand side it says Warren Fernandez works at some company name. It's like
For us in the Bay Area, like this whole remote thing, honestly, I've been in the Bay Area 9 years, and most of us make just enough money to be like happy, but we can't like buy any property.
Yep, sounds right.
We're all now that everyone's remote, we're like, should we move? Like, where do you want to go?
yeah. I have
That's so
friends who are
funny.
thinking about moving to the like Colorado and Midwest area.
I love Denver, to be honest.
In fact, they're picking cities like in these remote. Like one of my friends who actually he left Colorado to move to this town in Minnesota, and I was like, it's this like super tiny town in the middle of like it was like, why did he pick that town? And he just said one word: fiber. It's like the small town that has like the best internet ever. And then he left DigitalOcean and now he's working remote again for some other company that does like machine learning stuff. But yeah, he's just like, yeah, this town has fiber, so I have like the best internet ever. And that kind of enables him to, just do that more of the remote work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I mean, there's so many opportunities, and I mean, I feel like hiring maybe has slowed a little bit, but there's still definitely opportunities out there, even with COVID. So hopefully this generates more and more and more remote opportunities. I don't blame folks out in the Bay Area for wanting to move. I know the last company I worked at where I was full-time remote, their headquarters was in San Mateo. And I visited occasionally, and all of the engineers there were like, how big is your apartment?
Don't move to the area you guys have it so good out there. Like some of the cities that I've been to that are like tech hubs now, like Austin and Denver, are amazing. Seattle's getting super expensive, but Denver, Austin, like you guys are chilling.
Yeah. It's nice to actually be able to rent something larger than a closet. I have some coworkers at Fanatics that are out there as well in San Mateo, and like they're working from home, and it's like you can definitely tell how small their places are out there.
Yeah, we work remotely. I had to look this up, but yeah, I think it's just we work remotely on Twitter too. Does a lot of like they pump out advertisements for remote work.
Oh, nice.
It's at least worth kind of taking a look. And another city plug, Bozeman, Montana's like going off right now in that same tech, Austin, Denver, like, the little bit ahead of us. It's very interesting to watch people, kind of, being able to leave some of these bigger cities and kind of go seek out tech jobs elsewhere. It's kind of cool.
Very cool. Yeah, Bozeman, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about that.
I work for a whole series of California companies, and I can't tell you how many times I had the conversation about them wanting me to move and me basically telling them what it would cost for me to recreate my Colorado life in California. And then they don't want to pay it,
Yeah. Yeah, turns out you can hire talent all over the U.S. and save a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I've worked almost exclusively remotely for like the last 20 years, but a lot of that was working for California companies, so I would still have to travel in. Going to the office meant getting on a plane.
Yeah, I did that for a while as well. I feel like I half lived in San Mateo there for a year. I was there 20% of the time, I think.
I know what you mean. It's painful, actually.
Yeah. I miss some of the food out there because they have different, I guess, better, like different niches of food types than we have here. So
I was gonna say
missing my ramen fix, but other than that, I'm enjoying being back all the time.
Actually, I knew somebody that lived in Denver. I worked at this startup called Bizarre Voice, based in Austin, actually. But I worked in their San Francisco office, and our VP lived in Denver and flew to San Francisco for every single week, and he stayed 2 nights, and then he flew back to Denver. And I bet he'll save money.
For what it's worth, like I traveled out there, like, I mean, I was out there a lot. You get to be a pro. I mean, Denver to San Francisco is actually a really easy flight too. And SFO like is pretty much like, especially like since I was working in downtown San Mateo is where my office was, it was like way easy. It was like 10 minutes from the airport. I like had it nailed. I would wake up and like get to the airport like 15 minutes before my flight boarded, and it was getting really silly actually. I was bound to miss a flight at some point. I was like getting far too comfortable with this routine, and I was bound to miss a flight if I continued doing that.
I hate to tell you this, but if you're not missing an airplane every now and then, you're spending way too much time hanging around airports.
Oh, right. That's what I figured out. Yeah, I was like, I had clear and TSA pre-check, so I was like, I'll just walk right through security.
I used to fly to San Jose every 2 or 3 weeks. You know, it was a lot all the time, and the same thing. I can't tell you how many times I would get to the airport, and I'd walk up to the gate, and everybody would be on the plane, and there'd be like a rep there. Mr. Luciano? Yes. Okay. You can get on, and then I would hear the door close behind me. I used to do that all the time.
I never did cut it quite that close. I did cut it like pretty close because I got stuck in rush hour traffic in the Bay Area trying to get to the airport. And like, if I wouldn't have had clear, I don't think I would have made it. I was like at a dead run with my suitcase through SFO. And yeah, I got there and like the last 2 people were boarding. I was like, oh, good grief.
Oh, man. I was out in New York City a few months ago, and I actually was in Pennsylvania. I was visiting family in Pennsylvania, but I fly into New York because my daughter works for Delta Airlines, and that's the most convenient way to get out there. And I gave myself 5 hours. It's about a 2-hour drive. I gave myself 5 hours to drive to New York and catch my plane. And I hit all this insane traffic, and it was just killing me, right? And I get to the rental car place, and I said to the guy, dude, you got to drive me to the terminal or I'm missing my plane. So he said, okay, I can do that. So they will do that. I've done that more than once. And the guy drove me over to the terminal. I walk in, there's like 25 people in line, and I very loudly announce, is anyone else here about to miss their plane? And like everybody rolls their eyes and said, sure, go ahead. You can get in the front of the line. And I get to the next agent, and the agent holds up one finger and for everyone to hear said, 1 more minute. And I was.
That's funny.
That's one thing I appreciate about working from home and working remote is traffic. Not like there's no traffic. It's like staircase, and then my dog is in my way.
Weren't you driving to the Platt office for a while?
Yeah.
Platt in Denver.
Yeah. So before I used to work in the Boulder office, which would take me, funny enough, around the same time that it
sounds about right.
Rise to the Denver office, because at Boulder, once you just right outside of Boulder, like past 55th, then it's like signal, like one traffic signal after the next. Then trying. Well,
it's also like I read somewhere that was something crazy, like 60,000 people commute into Boulder for work every day, which is like a little, almost half as many people that actually live here. So like, this city is not meant for that level of traffic, and there's no way for them to make the roads bigger. So yeah. It's nuts. I used to make I was able to commute from Boulder to downtown Denver in like 25 minutes on the express bus, which is nuts, but it's just because it's just way easier to get into downtown Denver than it is to get into Boulder. If I would have gone been commuting the other direction, it would have taken me twice as long.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to drive into the work. But to the same point, like there are times I do miss the sort of social interaction. Our CEO, like the VMware CEO, Pat Gelsinger, he was talking about like how this whole COVID thing is actually going to change how offices are actually going to be built. And instead of like having cubicles or just like workspaces, it's going to be more of collaboration spaces. So literally you just come into work just to collaborate and meet people and kind of hang out and get the ideas flowing. But your day-to-day sort of work will actually still be, at your home office. So that would.
I'm totally cool with that, though. That sounds good to me. Sounds like
I know, right? It's like just get all the ping pong tables, put a pool table in there. I'd love to collaborate on at a pool table.
Yeah, a lot more hoteling style, like that kind of setup where you can have an office there, but it's not like a dedicated office.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a shared desk or whatever that like maybe anybody could be using.
Yeah, maybe not right now, but soon.
I think it's great. I mean, like I don't know. I don't mind going into the office, and I live actually like really pretty close. Like I could ride my bike to work right now if I wanted to, but I kind of don't want to be stuck in Boulder forever just to be close to tech companies. So like, it would be cool if like we just stopped doing that. That would be awesome.
You can move out to Erie, Stacey.
I'm not
it's a
moving to
hip
Erie.
happen. It's hip happen in suburbia.
No,
Yeah.
I actually think my next stop here shortly, probably later this year, is Denver. I'm probably leaving Boulder, so.
Yeah,
But I mean, it like makes zero difference to this group. I'll actually be closer to the in-person meetup in Denver,
Yeah.
like when I move, so it makes zero
I'll
difference.
probably be staying up in this area. So
Yeah.
we'll see you around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably, I'm looking at Denver in October probably. I'm just kind of looking for like a house rental maybe. Because apparently I can afford to rent the whole house for what I pay for my apartment in Boulder. I was like,
Yep.
okay,
That's not a
yeah, that
surprise.
definitely nail in the coffin there. I was like, well, so I can have a yard for the same price? Holy cow. I guess I've been living here for 6 years, so I had quit looking at like the prices outside of Boulder. I think because I found them depressing. So I was like, this is so depressing that I'm paying so much money. So I just like started ignoring it for a while.
We don't have yards.
Yeah, right. They don't really exist out there.
It's okay. You don't need that extra water cost in your.
I live in Arvada, which is kind of in between Boulder and Denver, and I wouldn't recommend it for like great food or anything like that. But location-wise, it's pretty good. I can get up to Boulder in about half an hour and down to Denver with 20 to 30 minutes. So.
Where is that?
Arvada. I live near
that's where I
Stevens
live.
Lake. Oh, right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good spot.
Old Town's got some stuff going on.
Old
Boulder would
Town's
be a
good.
straight shot if Stanley Lake wasn't in the way.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I appreciate it being there, though. It's nice to get out and walk around, especially right now.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like I said that I wanted to be here to stay here too because of all the trails, and like now whenever I hit any of the trails, they're so crowded I have to wear a mask. I'm like, it's like 100 degrees outside and I have a mask on, and I'm like, this is miserable. Like just because every Boulder person is out on the trails like all the time, so now they're like really, really crowded, and I'm like, oh, this is so sad.
It's very hard to find any sort of camping spots at all.
Yeah, even the high country.
Yeah.
I mean, it is every summer. They get booked up, like the good camping places get booked up like really early in the year every year, but it's even worse this year. I looked like, I was hoping to maybe go camping in place of a different trip that got canceled and in like the end of August. And it looks like I might not even be able to find a campsite in Wyoming. I was like, really?
Yeah, all the reserve camp spots are taken, and then I was like, okay, let's try and do what is that? Like backcountry, camping, like just anywhere. And even then, I was like, how far do I want to drive to maybe get a campsite over there? Because there are some places where it's just like first come first serve. So
yeah, because you could drive really far and get up there, and then there's no space.
Yeah, there's like no space
yeah.
there to camp.
My family and I were just trying to plan a trip. We've gone a couple times so far, and we wanted to go back. There's a campsite outside of Leadville called Lakeview Campground, right near the Twin Lakes area, which is really pretty. I recommend it. But I'm actually out of work right now and looking for a job. So we were like, oh, let's take advantage of that and go during the week, which we did the first time, and it was great. But I looked again, trying to schedule it this week, and it's booked solid every day of the week for at least 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, it's
Oh
like
wow.
the secret's out. Everybody realized,
The,
oh, yeah, I can get
where
out
I
there.
camp, there's no booking. There's no booking anything. I'll tell you my secret. Okay, you know where Glenwood Springs is?
Yeah.
17 miles this side of Glenwood Springs. There's an exit called .0. And there's about a half a mile from the exit is a graded, it's a maintained road, but it's not paved, called Coffee Pot Road that goes like 38 miles into the wilderness before it becomes a Jeep trail. And there's all kinds of 4x4 trails off to the side of that. And there's hundreds of places to camp. You can camp all over the place, and it's a quiet. My son was just out there, and he said they didn't see another soul while they were there for a couple of days. But the last 5.5 miles takes an hour to drive.
And in what kind of car are you in if it takes you an hour to drive? I wanted to make me think my car probably even couldn't make it.
No, I think you need it for like
an
a
F1.
Jeep.
I have an F-150 with the off-road package, 4-wheel drive in the off-road package.
Yeah, my
It
Ford
has no
WRX
problem.
would not make that road.
No, you definitely need a high ground clearance 4-wheel drive vehicle to drive these roads, but there is so much beautiful stuff out there. It is incredible. I've done a lot of exploring on these 4-wheel drive trails. It's crazy. It's beautiful.
That's actually a good pro tip for all the people from the West Coast who would like to come over to Colorado. All-wheel drive at the bare minimum, or 4-wheel drive would be nice if you'd like to go outdoors.
Yeah. All-wheel drive is so worth it, especially in this area. And when you were commuting to Boulder and stuff, like Boulder just doesn't really plow. And we get like 90 some odd inches annually. Like if you don't have an all-wheel drive car, like good luck with that. Like, because you're not going to be going very many places in the winter. Like,
And good tires.
Yeah, exactly.
I would highly recommend winter tires.
Yeah. My WRX makes it on all seasons, but I think that doesn't count. Like that doesn't count. Yeah. Like I do see people around here who have like old tires on like Hondas or whatever, and they're trying to make it around, and I'm like, I do not envy you. Like it's just, you cannot make it around in Boulder winters like that.
Guys, I'm gonna run, but thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for speaking.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Reach out.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy. Thanks, man.
Right. I'm going to jump off as well. Thank you, everybody.
I think
I'm going to drop off as well.
Cool.
All right.
Hopefully we'll see you all next month.
Yeah.
We'll see you all next month. Thanks.
Tell your friends.
Same here.
We'll
Thanks for
do
the
it.
intro, guys.
Thanks,
Take care,
everybody.
everybody.
See ya.
For anybody who wanted it, I actually found the real link to our store. Austin had it.
Oh yeah,
We should update the Meetup page.
I saw you threw it in there.
Yeah.
I was able to Google it and I posted it in the Denver.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. There's like, I don't know, our bit link. I don't know. I don't even know. So we have more than one issue that we need to fix that I found. So on our stuff, like our slides have a weird permissions error. Plus we have 2 bit links. One of them has a dash in it. I was like, really? Like, so, and then I have no idea who even owns those. Like, I don't know if we can fix them. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I bet it's Austin that owns them. So we'll have Austin fix up some of that stuff. But yeah, we should do some regular house cleaning on all of things.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna stop recording. I forgot. I should have stopped recording right after the thing. Fine.
Oh well, whatever.